She wears only long sleeves, now you know why. For years, people have stared at Dolly Parton's arms and wondered what she was hiding. I've heard some pretty wild explanations myself. Tattoos, surgery, even ridiculous stories about snakes covering her arms. But when Dolly finally explained the truth, it wasn't nearly as scandalous as people expected. It was actually much more personal. Dolly Parton has spent most of her life being completely recognizable. The enormous hair, the sparkling clothes, the long nails, the heels, the makeup, and, almost always, those long sleeves. That last detail has quietly followed her for decades. And the funny thing is, Dolly has never been particularly shy about talking about her appearance. She jokes about cosmetic procedures. She talks about wigs. She laughs about how much effort goes into looking the way she does. So why were her arms different? Why keep that one part of herself covered? The answer starts with something Dolly has dealt with for much of her life: scarring. Dolly has explained that she has a tendency to develop keloid scars. These scars can become raised and can remain noticeably darker or purple compared with the surrounding skin. And for someone who has spent more than 6 decades in front of cameras, that's not exactly an easy thing to ignore. Imagine having every part of your appearance photographed, analyzed, and discussed. Now imagine having scars that don't simply fade away. I think that changes the way you see clothing. For Dolly, long sleeves weren't necessarily about hiding from the world. They became part of how she presented herself. But here's where the story gets much more interesting. Dolly didn't simply cover those scars. Sometimes she turned them into artwork. She has admitted that she has a few tattoos, but they're not the kind of tattoos people imagined. They're generally delicate, pastel designs. Flowers, butterflies, ribbons, pretty little images. And there's a reason for that. Dolly explained that some of the tattoos were created to cover scars. That completely changes the story. The tattoos weren't really about rebellion. They weren't an attempt to shock anybody. They were a way of taking something she didn't particularly like and turning it into something beautiful. And honestly, that sounds incredibly Dolly, because she has been doing that her entire life. Go back to her childhood in Tennessee. Dolly was one of 12 children, growing up in a tiny home with very little money. Her mother made her a coat from scraps of fabric. Dolly loved it. She saw something beautiful. Other children saw something embarrassing. They laughed at her. But Dolly remembered that coat differently. Her mother had taken almost nothing and made something special. Years later, Dolly turned that memory into one of her most famous songs, Coat of Many Colors. And when I look at the story of her tattoos, I see the same idea again. Take something people might consider imperfect. Don't throw it away. Decorate it. Give it another meaning. That's basically Dolly Parton's philosophy in miniature. Her appearance has always been carefully constructed. She has openly talked about cosmetic surgery. She has joked about fixing anything that starts to sag, drag, or bag. She has never pretended that her famous look simply happened by accident. But there is an important distinction. Some parts of Dolly's appearance are choices she made. Her scars were different. They were reminders of medical procedures and difficult moments in her life. And she didn't owe the public a display of them. That's something I think gets lost whenever people talk about celebrity mysteries. Fame creates this strange idea that if millions of people know your name, they should know everything about you. Dolly never accepted that bargain. She gave the public her music, her humor, her personality, her stories.